Hey everyone, we are on week 14 of AP Lit Vocab, and as I mentioned maybe last week, many of the words are going to be related here in the next several weeks to poetry, and that is true for the words this week. They're all actually related to sounds in poetry, so whether it's the sound certain words make in repetition or in a pattern, but it's sort of all the words this week are related to sound. So this is actually take 2 of my video this week, so hopefully I am going to be able to share with you here what we got going on. And there we are. So our first word this week is one you might be familiar with, and it is alliteration. Most of my slides this week have actual examples on them. I think it's just easier to talk you through when you can kind of see some examples. So alliteration, if you remember, is the repetition of sounds at the beginning of words in close succession to one another. So Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, that p sound that's repeated. Now I said in close succession, so it doesn't have to be immediate, like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, but it needs to be close enough where you can hear and you can sort of take note of that repeated sound. So in the next example, it says, how craven so to strike me stricken so. So here you have a couple of words between, but you still hear that, how craven so to strike me stricken so. Okay, you hear that repeated there. Here's another example. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary had that wah sound at the beginning. I kind of made a fun note on here, but many company names actually use alliteration. Dunkin' Donuts, PayPal, Bed Bath & Beyond, LifeLock, Krispy Kreme. You could probably think of more as you go. But alliteration is often used to emphasize certain words. You tend to remember things when they use a technique of alliteration. Sometimes it can sort of create an awareness for the mood or draw your attention to some sort of meaning, or it might enhance the rhythm in a piece of poetry, for instance. So that is alliteration. The next one is assonance. And assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound within non-rhyming words. And that's actually a really important part of this definition. The repetition of a vowel sound within non-rhyming words. Okay, so the words don't rhyme, but you have a similar vowel sound in the middle of them. And assonance is used to give works a musical quality, and it helps sort of unify stanzas and passages. Here's like 3 quick examples. Sweet dreams, that E sound kind of in the middle, that's that vowel sound in the middle of the words, and those words do not rhyme. High, mighty, that long high, mighty sound. The sinking moon floods the rafters of my room. Moon and room have that ooh sound in the center of them. Okay, and that is examples of assonance. Next up is consonants. And I know the words look a little funny on here, but I did that to draw your attention to certain letters. So consonants is a poetic device that's characterized by repetition of the same consonant 2 or more times in short succession. And we're talking about the middle of words because alliteration talks about the beginnings of words. So we're talking about repetition of the consonant sound within words 2 or more times in short succession. So here's an example, pitter patter, that t sound that's repeated there. I always say the kittens lost their mittens, that t sound reminds me of pitter patter. All mammals named Sam are clammy. It's kind of a fun one to say actually, because you get that sound repeated over and over. And that is consonants, right? It should help remember that with the idea of a consonant. Onomatopoeia. This should be a repeat for you, but onomatopoeia is simply a word that creates the sound that it says. So my very favorite onomatopoeia is murmur, right? It sounds like a murmur when you say the word. And so these are usually noise words, onomatopoeia, but you know you want to do it. Say murmur. Say it out loud. Don't say it in your head. Ready? Murmur. It sounds like what it is. That's why it's my favorite one. Hiss is another one that works, right? You usually say hiss. It's hard to like cut off that S sound because of the double S's. And so it creates that hiss. Those are just some examples. There's plenty more. Epistrophe is our next word, and I have a little trick for you to remember this one as well. So epistrophe is the repetition of the same word or phrase at the end of a series of lines, phrases, or sentences. I'll repeat that definition for you. It's the repetition of the same word or phrase at the end of a series of lines, phrases, or sentences. So notice how we are born to sorrow, pass our time in sorrow, end our days in sorrow. Here's another quick example. What lies behind us, what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us. You might have heard, especially the second one is kind of a popular graduation quote. But those are examples of epistrophe. Now, the way I remember this one, and the way I remember that it's different from the next one, is that epistrophe comes at the end, and end and epistrophe both start with E. Epistrophe comes at the ends of lines. Now, the next word is anaphora. And anaphora is very similar to epistrophe, but almost the exact opposite. So it's a repetition of the same word or phrase at the beginning of a series of lines, phrases, etc. So again, here's another example. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker, sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, me. And this is a Langston Hughes one. Now here's another one. This is a really famous one from Charles Dickens. A Tale of Two Cities starts out this way. And these are his like phrases in his sentence. But I, again, put in black what I was trying to draw your attention to. It was the best of times, the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, the age of foolishness, and it goes on and on. But it was the, and I didn't even get all the it was thes in there. But each of those phrases repeats that it was the. Think about why. Why would an author do that, right? Your attention is drawn to that idea because can it be so many things at once? Well, clearly it is. Can you be so many things at once? Clearly you can be. Okay, the next two are kind of fun, but I want you to know that euphony and then the next word, cacophony, are basically complete opposites of each other. And I think it's easier to understand euphony once you understand cacophony. But basically, you use the word euphony to describe something that's pleasing or has a sweet sound to the ear. It's harmonious. It sounds beautiful. It sounds like it fits together. So I just put a couple examples from famous poems here. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. And you may read that and think to yourself, but Mrs. White, this just seems really normal to me. Well, in contrast to our next word, cacophony, these examples that I have in euphony are going to sound beautiful. So cacophony is basically, we use that term to describe words that we put together that sound harsh or discordant. They don't sound right on the ear. And the first one example is from Jabberwocky. I'm not going to read this one out loud. I'm actually going to read the second example out loud. But it just sounds discordant. It doesn't sound right. It sounds a little like, gives you the creeps or the goosebumps or the shivers. Lick, crack, sick hack, the beggar harried her open back. It just sounds, it doesn't sound beautiful. It sounds harsh. And that's cacophony. That's a word we use to describe the way sounds, that's a bell. The way sounds are when we put them together and they just don't sound quite as so beautiful. Our very last word for the week is anastrophe, and this is the word I call the Yoda word, because this is when our typical language word order is inverted. And anastrophe is used to emphasize the displaced word or phrase. And I put a few examples on here. There was a ship, quoth he, troubles everybody's got. I like this one because it's short, but it illustrates the point. Troubles everybody's got. Instead of saying everybody's got troubles, it emphasizes the word troubles in this case. Ready, are you? Excited the children were when Santa entered the room. Sure I am of this. This is a famous one from The Raven. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing. And usually with these ones, what happens, and this isn't the case all the time, but a lot of times these descriptive words are moved to the end, or verbs are moved to the end of the phrase or the line, and it's just not how we typically write words, but it's, again, to draw attention to the displaced word. And think of an anastrophe as the Yoda device, because he always puts words out of the typical word order. That is everything I